Imagine the shock and uncertainty that grips a nation when a president dies unexpectedly while in office. It has happened only 8 times in American history. Whether from natural causes, an accident, or assassination, each death triggers a dramatic sequence of events affecting the continuity of the president's ideas, agenda, and goals. Let's delve into the intriguing stories behind each of these tragic moments and explore how they shape the future of the United States. William Henry Harrison, the first U.S. president to die in office and holder of the shortest presidential term, passed away just 1 month after his inauguration. He fell ill shortly after giving a 2-hour-long inaugural address on March 4th without a coat or hat. Later that month, Harrison was exposed to a cold rainstorm, after which he became seriously ill. Despite treatment for pneumonia of the lower lobe of the right lung, complicated by congestion of the liver, which included repeated enemas and opium, Harrison's condition worsened. He died in the early morning of April 4th. The president's death prompted a 30-day period of mourning, with public observances and a private funeral. His body was transported to Ohio for burial. There was no precedent for presidential succession in 1841, and Harrison's death highlighted the vagaries of the U.S. Constitution on the matter. John Tyler, the vice president, assumed the presidency upon Harrison's death, effectively establishing the precedent for presidential succession. Tyler was sworn in on April 6th and officially moved into the White House, serving until 1845. Zachary Taylor, who became the 12th president in March 1849, died 16 months later. Known for his anti-slavery stance, Taylor was embroiled in contentious debates with Congress over slavery legislation. On July 4, 1850, amid excessive heat in Washington, D.C., he attended an Independence Day celebration where he ate cherries and iced milk and drank a significant amount of water. Shortly thereafter, Taylor developed a severe stomach illness, likely cholera, a waterborne disease prevalent in the city. Despite medical treatment, Taylor succumbed to diarrhea, digestive upset, and dehydration, passing away on the morning of July 9th. Conspiracy theories about Taylor's death soon emerged, suggesting he might have been poisoned due to his controversial political positions. Some theories were fueled by the discovery of arsenic in his exhumed remains in the 1990s, although this is still debated. Taylor's vice president, Millard Fillmore, was sworn in on July 10th. On the night of April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth while attending a performance at Ford's Theater with his wife Mary Todd Lincoln. Booth entered the president's box and fired a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head. After being moved across the street to a boarding house, Lincoln succumbed to his injuries just after 7 a.m. on April 15th, becoming the first U.S. president to be assassinated while in office. In the wake of Lincoln's death, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton immediately launched an investigation. Vice President Andrew Johnson was sworn in as president within hours. The nation was deeply shocked by Lincoln's assassination, which came just as the Civil War had ended. Lincoln's body was prepared and transported to the Capitol to lie in state before being sent by train to Springfield, Illinois. As the train traveled across the country, thousands of mourners gathered to pay their respects. The manhunt for Lincoln's assassins began swiftly. Booth and accomplice David Herold were eventually tracked to a barn in Virginia. Booth was killed during the raid, while Herold surrendered and was later tried and sentenced. A total of 9 individuals were tried for their involvement in the conspiracy, with some receiving death sentences and others imprisonment. James A. Garfield served as President of the United States for less than a year, having been inaugurated on March 4, 1881. He was assassinated on July 2, 1881. Becoming the second president to be killed. The assassination was carried out by Charles J. Guiteau, who shot Garfield twice in the back as the president was traveling to New Jersey to join his family. Garfield's death was prolonged and painful. Despite efforts by inventor Alexander Graham Bell to locate the bullets with a specialized device, the attempt was unsuccessful. The medical interventions likely exacerbated his condition, contributing to a fatal infection. He died on September 19, 1881, at the New Jersey seashore. Vice President Chester Alan Arthur succeeded Garfield and completed the remainder of his term. Guiteau, who had been apprehended immediately after the shooting and was convicted of murder due to his delusions about a diplomatic post, was executed by hanging on June 30, 1882. William McKinley, in the midst of his second presidential term, was shot on September 6, 1901, while attending the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. Anarchist Leon Czolgosz approached McKinley as he greeted the public and fired 2 bullets into his abdomen. Despite initial recovery signs following surgery, McKinley's condition worsened due to gangrene and infection, leading to his death on September 14, 1901. McKinley had pleaded with the crowd to spare Czolgosz, a plea that may have spared the assassin's life. Nonetheless, Czolgosz was tried, convicted, and executed on October 29, 1901. McKinley's first vice president, Garrett Hobart, had died in 1899 and was succeeded by Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was swiftly sworn in as president on the day of McKinley's death, ensuring a seamless transition of power. Warren G. Harding took office in 1921 as the 29th president. By August 1923, as he was touring the West Coast amidst a nationwide economic depression, Harding was visibly exhausted. Despite his doctor's advice to rest, he continued his busy schedule. On the evening of August 2nd, while reading the newspaper in bed, Harding suffered a heart attack and died shortly thereafter. His body was transported back to Washington, D.C. by train, where he lay in state at the Capitol before being buried in Ohio. Vice President Calvin Coolidge was sworn in on August 3, 1923, and swiftly assured the public of his commitment to continuing Harding's policies and responsibilities. Franklin D. Roosevelt, serving as president through the Great Depression and most of World War II, was re-elected for an unprecedented 4th term in 1944. However, by April 1945, his health had deteriorated significantly. Seeking respite, Roosevelt retreated to his home in Warm Springs, Georgia, accompanied by his rumored lover, Lucy Mercer, and close family. On April 12th, while sitting for a portrait by artist Elizabeth Shumatoff, Roosevelt suddenly complained of a severe headache and collapsed. Despite doctors' efforts to revive him, he succumbed to a cerebral hemorrhage that afternoon. The nation, deeply mournful of Roosevelt's passing, observed a lengthy farewell. His body was transported by train from Georgia to Washington, D.C., where hundreds of thousands gathered to pay their respects as he was taken to the White House. His funeral, arranged by First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, preceded his burial in New York. On the same day, Vice President Harry S. Truman was sworn in as president. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was in Dallas, Texas, with his wife Jacqueline when he was shot and killed. After a morning filled with public appearances, the Kennedy motorcade was traveling through downtown Dallas amidst a cheering crowd. Suddenly, shots rang out and President Kennedy was struck twice, once in the head and once in the back. The motorcade rushed to the hospital, but the severity of his injuries was evident. Kennedy's wounds proved fatal, and his death was announced later that afternoon. Later, Kennedy's body was transported back to Washington, D.C. aboard Air Force One. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was also in Dallas at the time, was swiftly sworn in as president while Jacqueline Kennedy looked on. The nation was plunged into mourning, deeply grieving the loss of a young leader who had reinvigorated American spirit and hope. Kennedy's funeral, held on November 25, 1963, was a somber occasion, with the president laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. The funeral procession, attended by numerous world leaders and dignitaries, symbolized the global impact of Kennedy's death. His grave was marked by an eternal flame, a tribute to the enduring legacy of his presidency. The man accused of assassinating Kennedy was Lee Harvey Oswald, a former Marine who had briefly defected to the Soviet Union. Oswald was apprehended later that day after killing a Dallas police officer, J.D. Tippit. However, before he could stand trial, Oswald was shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby on November 24th in the basement of the Dallas police headquarters. Ruby claimed that his motive was to spare Jacqueline Kennedy the ordeal of a trial, but his actions only fueled numerous conspiracy theories about Kennedy's assassination, suggesting that Oswald had not acted alone and that there was a larger plot at play. Jack Ruby was convicted of murder and sentenced to death in 1964, but his conviction was later overturned on appeal, and he was granted a new trial. However, Ruby died of lung cancer on January 3, 1967, before the new trial could take place. His death only added to the enduring mystery and speculation surrounding the events in Dallas. In response to the national and international turmoil following Kennedy's death, President Lyndon B. Johnson established the Warren Commission, headed by Chief Justice Earl Warren, to investigate the assassination. The commission concluded that Oswald had acted alone in killing Kennedy and that there was no evidence of a broader conspiracy. A key element of the commission's findings was the controversial single bullet theory, often referred to as the magic bullet theory. This theory posited that one bullet caused multiple wounds in both Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally, who was also injured during the shooting. Despite the Warren Commission's conclusions, the single bullet theory has been heavily scrutinized and remains a focal point for those questioning the official account. The JFK assassination remains one of the most significant and controversial events in American history. It not only marked the end of an era, but also left a lasting impact on the nation's collective consciousness, forever enshrouded in mystery and speculation. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and share the video if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button for more historical insights. Until then, keep exploring.